Rachael L. McIntosh. I live in East Greenwich. And I got involved with this because I ended up just taking a water sample from my front yard, a rainwater sample, because I didn't even know what the heck this stuff was. And I've got a collection of samples here. And each year, the geoengineering footprints of barium, strontium, aluminum, and sulfur go up and up and up. I've submitted all these to you. What they're doing, I'm just going to explain geoengineering. It's the intentional manipulation of the environment, involving nuclear, biological, chemical, electromagnetic, or other physical agent activities that affect changes to the Earth's atmosphere or surface. There are many types of geoengineering. For instance, if you build a dam to create a lake, that's geoengineering. But if you inject sulfur dioxide, SO2, and carbon dioxide, CO2, as dry ice into the stratosphere to create rain, that's geoengineering. And everybody here has seen the results in the sky. Our sky didn't look like this back when I was a kid, 20 years ago. As if I'm 40 now. But everybody's seen the trails in the sky, and then in the afternoon it gets murky, gets kind of gray. This is solar geoengineering. They're trying to dim the sun to bring down the temperature level, apparently. But it's just one geoengineering thing that they're doing. Okay? So I want you to realize we've all seen it and just kind of ignored it. Now, Rhode Island's Senator Claiborne Pell, who's on the cover here, he was the first elected official to recognize the dangers of geoengineering. It was in 1975 they wrote an editorial in the Providence Journal called "The United States and Other World Powers Should Outlaw Tampering with the Weather as Used as a War Weapon." He was afraid that the world leaders would start directing storms, manipulating climates, and inducing earthquakes against their enemies. Senator Pell knew of Operation Popeye, a highly classified weather modification program that was used in Vietnam to extend the monsoon season. Modified rain poured down on Ho Chi Minh Trail, and it extended the rainy season over the main military supply route for the Viet Cong. This practice of modifying the weather has evolved since its early experience in the 1940s. They've been doing this in secret for over 60 years. And all the other countries in the world kind of got on the wagon, they're doing it too. Right now, Spain is trying to make it rain over an area 3 times the size of Spain. There's companies here in Rhode Island that if you've got, let's say your daughter's getting married and you want to make it not rain, you can pay them. They don't have a license. We don't know what they're spraying. There should be a process to this, right? So that's why this law is critical. On top of that, I'm just going to read to you from this.
Rachel, in conclusion.
In conclusion, the conclusion is they are playing with the weather, have been playing with the weather. I worked for a defense contractor. This is how I was able to put all this information together for our study commission. And this law has to pass. It will be the first in the country, and other countries are looking at us. France, Germany, down in Africa, they're looking at us because they're trying to figure out how to deal with it. And right here in Rhode Island, we were the first state to not sign the Constitution of the United States of America. We didn't sign it until we had a Bill of Rights. Right now, we need to stand up for our rights and say, we're not taking this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jolie.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone on the committee and to my colleagues for their testimony. And my name is Jolie Diane. I'm a researcher, a geoengineering researcher and advocate for environmental and human health, and I've contracted frequently to laboratories for analysis of environmental water and snow samples. So we have 7 tests from here in Rhode Island over the last 3 years. They all have aluminum, barium, strontium, and sulfur. Not the highest we've seen. The highest we've seen is in Illinois. We had 10,000 aluminum and 19,000 sulfur dioxide. This past week, a couple days ago, I went to it was a conference for geoengineering governance headed by the UN in Washington, D.C. and there were many academics from around the world, and I'm going to let you go ahead and read my testimony, and I'm just going to walk through just a few of the different people that are trying to do geoengineering governance right now. Because even though it's new for us in the international context, there's a real push to establish some sort of legitimate geoengineering governance. Okay, so if we don't do it here, it will be done for us. And so just to give you a couple of examples, okay, so I went to this one the other day. It was called, it was from the National Academy of Sciences, and they want to develop a research agenda and research governance approaches for climate intervention strategies that reflect sunlight to cool the earth. That's solar radiation management, covering the sun with sulfur aerosols. So that's one of them. Then also this summer coming up, there's a geoengineering governance conference, and that's going to be in Canada, and it's sponsored by Harvard and UCLA. So that's not open to the public, okay? And then what we have, just going back a little bit in history, or actually in February, this came out, Geoengineering, the Need for Governance. This is from Carnegie Institution. They're very much at the forefront of pushing geoengineering governance. Then we have something called the Solar Radiation Management Geoengineering Governance Initiative. That was in 2018. This year we had the Governing Solar Radiation Management. This is from Climate Engineering Assessment, Academic Working Group on Climate Engineering Governance. Then from 2016, we have the Paris Agreement and Climate Geoengineering Governance. Okay, this is also the Paris climate proposal is actually based upon a military proposal from 1970s from the Soviet Union. So if you look closely at what they're offering us as climate mitigation, what that is adding sulfur aerosols to the atmosphere to control the temperature. Now that's based on a Soviet document from DARPA. It's open source material. But the most important thing that I want to tell you about is the electromagnetic component. And there was a question earlier, how do we measure the geoengineering? One of the ways is the lab tests, and again we have 100 tests in a row, over 100 in a row right now from the United States and around the world that show geoengineering footprints very clearly. But the other thing that I want you to know, that's the most important thing that I'm going to talk about here, is the electromagnetic piece. This is an acoustometer, and this is how we measure electromagnetic microwave radiation, which is pollution, but we don't see it, okay? And in the ambient area here, what we're seeing, and you'll notice the pulse nature of this, okay, I'll turn this down a little bit. Okay, as biological beings, we're absorbing the microwave radiation, and what is crucial about this, and most people don't know, is the role of the cell towers in microwave radiation in geoengineering. And so basically, I'm very grateful for this bill being introduced. It's absolutely vital that this bill gets passed. The next state that's looking at this, it was going to be introduced in Pennsylvania. We have sponsorship in the Senate there. And I'm just very grateful to the committee for looking at this seriously. And then this is something that we can do something about. Once Rhode Island gets this passed, I think other states will quickly follow. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Julie. Sir, that was very informative. One of my biggest, being on the commission, one of my biggest concerns is weaponizing our weather and controlling our weather. And the first one that you asked is you can cause droughts in other countries. It's a shame that some of it falls out on us, but it's a concern of mine, and I thought I should state this because I was on the commission. Any questions? Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and we're going to bring up 3 more witnesses.